Hello and welcome along once again to It'll Be Alright in the 90s, the podcast that would work really well on the radio actually and just needs a station to give it a chance. All offers should be submitted in writing to Jeff, care of the Lodge. I'm Stu Jocelyn, I've definitely got a face for radio, but joining me as always is the dashingly handsome Alex Greenwood. Alex, great to be back with you. Before we go any further, the World Cup sweepstake at the Lodge. Spain took the big prize. Who took the big prize at the Lodge? Do we even need to ask?
Well, I think actually both Dad of the Pod and Jeff both had Spain in the sweepstakes, and maybe even more people. So we're all having to fork out our fivers for that. But we all knew that, it was going to go to the top, wasn't it? The prize money.
Either it's the most egalitarian sweepstake in history, or questions need to be asked and fingers need to be pointed.
It's the only organisation structure more corrupt than FIFA itself is the Lodge.
Well, it's lovely to be back with you, everybody, and we are talking tonight about radio in the 90s. But before that, Alex, if we're talking about radio in the 90s, we have to have a suitable sponsor. You remember a couple of episodes ago, Jeff went global and got McDonald's in for us?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, he's gone very, very local this time, and I think you're going to appreciate this. So a word for our sponsors tonight.
811 663, caution building plastics.
Conservatories, doors and windows too.
We'll get your place fixed up like new.
Just one call, we do it all.
And the prices are fantastic.
Just call 811 663.
Caution building plastics.
Yes, listeners to It'll Be Alright in the 90s can use the code ALRIGHT90s when purchasing any conservatory from Caution Building Plastics to get Alex and Stu to come and install it personally. Wait a minute, what?
Call 811 663.
Caution building plastics.
I think Jeff's possibly overreached himself a bit there.
I don't know how to put in a conservatory. I can barely put up a shelf.
I'll tell you what this has all come from. Do you remember we had that meeting a little while ago where you and I were saying to Jeff, look, the 90s is all well and good. We love the 90s, but maybe it's time for us to branch out a bit. We've got more talent that we can use. I think this is possibly where this has come from. But I'm a sort of media lovey type. I can't be doing anything like that.
Yeah, I've got hands for podcasting, not for manual labour.
I meant maybe doing a bit of writing or something like that, not building conservatories. But hey, why not go and use the code if you're thinking about getting a new conservatory in the Wiltshire area? Then you might get Alex and me turning up on your doorstep to put in your new conservatory. How about that? Time for a quick look then at the bulletin board and in the post bag. Alex, what have you got over there?
Well, a couple of things related to friend of the pod, Teresa, an official Teenage Diarist of the pod, of course, Teresa Stenson. The first thing is a response to her question a few weeks ago now, where she asked us what songs maybe passed us by in the 90s, but then now, in hindsight, mean quite a lot to us. I think she was referring to the Cranberries, which she said was a band that she didn't really have that much interest in at the time. But now she really, gets a real Proustian rush from listening to them, and they mean a lot more to her now. And I've had to think about this myself. And for me, I think Born Slippy by Underworld would be the prime example. It's a song I didn't really like at the time, found it quite irritating. But now when I hear it, really takes me back. It's a massive nostalgia rush when I hear that song, as I know it is for a lot of people, actually. And then aside from that, I would say lots of early 90s dance songs, like Hadaway, What Is Love, is a song that I was not that interested in at the time, but now when I hear it, it's very of that time, specifically early 90s, very different to the later 90s when it was all Westlife and Boyzone and such like. But early 90s was very dance dominated, I think, and that's why I think it answers that question from Teresa for me pretty well. And I would also say Pure Shores by All Saints, but as we talked about in the episode with Catherine about girl bands, that song actually came out in 2000, although maybe the album came out in 99, I'm not sure. But yeah, Pure Shores is a song that takes me back, even though I didn't like it that much at the time. Have you thought about this question yet, or is it something you're still pondering?
I'm still pondering. I will try and answer it on the next episode if that's okay. But I have to ask, how can you not have liked Hadaway at the time? Hadaway was brilliant. It still is brilliant. I find that shocking.
I'm not sure if it was that I didn't like it. It was more I didn't specifically like it, and it's not something I like sought out to buy or to record off the radio. I think it was just the song that was there. Like, I suppose it was played a lot. It's pretty ubiquitous, and I don't know, just didn't interest me that much at the time.
Well, you think you know someone. Wow, that's amazing.
And my other thing from Teresa was a message on our Instagram post for the first part of our top 40 countdown, which was the episode before last. And she says, I'm partway through listening, but must chime in and give you a bit of Dado Rail adjacent content. Sometime around 1994, my mum's idiot boyfriend decorated their bedroom. And while they didn't install a Dado Rail, they had the budget version of this decorating phase where you'd have a paper border around the middle of the room. Anyway, he put the very bold, dark pink stripy wallpaper above the border and the plain light pink paper below it. Just awful.
No.
Redoing it wasn't an option, so it stayed like that, a testament to his idiocy. Also, I think in the last episode, you suggested it was more of the middle class people who had potpourri. I will challenge this because we had several bowls of this stuff and were common as muck. Also, we pronounced it like potpourri. Thank you very much for that, Teresa. The budget dado rail, Stu?
More classic content from Teresa. The budget dado rail, of course. I can't believe that the idiot boyfriend, as she puts it, put the wacky pattern at the top and the plain pattern at the bottom. That's just not the way you do it,
No.
dado rail or not.
No, that makes me think of sort of old-fashioned hotel corridors where maybe you could get away with that sort of stuff, but not in the house.
Mm-hmm. I'm very familiar with the budget dado rail. The spare bedroom at my parents' house had a budget dado rail in it for a long time until that was redecorated recently. Speaking of which, it didn't strike me as strange at the time, but when wife of the pod Beth and I moved into our current house, one of the bedrooms had a budget dado rail installed, but right around the top of the wall, like at the join with the ceiling. I've never seen that anywhere else.
I think, yeah, this was also a 90s thing. When I was growing up, I had one of those strips. It wasn't like touching the ceiling, it was a little bit below it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like a cartoon or an illustration of like a woodland scene with mice and stuff. So, for children and for children's bedrooms. And I'm sure it was supposed to go around the top there. And I think I'd seen them in other places as well. So that was definitely a thing. I don't know what that's called. Definitely like a wallpaper strip rather than an actual rail, like a dado rail. But that was the thing as well, for sure.
Well, listeners, we're obviously interested in your take on this. What is the optimum position for a dado rail or indeed a budget dado rail? Do write in and let us know what your thoughts are on this.
What have you got on your side of the bulletin board, Stu?
Well, I've been on holiday over the past couple of weeks, and I'd like to report a star spot, if that's okay with you. A 90s star spot.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's been a long time since we've had one of them, if we've ever had one.
Well, wife of the pod, Beth, and I were staying at a popular Wiltshire holiday location, celebrating one of our good friends' 40th birthdays. We were heading to a Mexican restaurant for the evening, and when we walked into the building, who should be walking out of the building? None other than 90s comedy legend and one of my personal favourite comedians, Richard Herring, was there.
Wow, that's amazing. That is not just a 90s legend, but yeah, really like one of your big heroes.
I'm a massive fan of Richard Herring. I've seen him live many, many times. I didn't bother him. I suspect he was there on holiday with his family, so I didn't wish to disturb him. But no, it was great to see him. It was great to see him there.
Well, that's fantastic restraint you've showed there to to not bother him. I think I would have really struggled myself, but yeah, fair play.
Well, I was a little bit starstruck, to be honest. That was probably it. And don't worry, Jeff has already hauled me over the coals for not immediately doorstepping him and asking him to come on this show.
Oh man, can you imagine? I wonder what he would have said. I mean, obviously he would have said no, but I wonder how he would have said no.
Very politely, I would think. I'd also like to thank Teresa for doing some more research into the singing career of Bill Tarmy, fast becoming one of the mascots of this podcast. And she's pointed out that he, on one of his albums, performed a version of All for One's 1994 hit, I Swear.
Okay, yeah.
Now, I have listened to this. It's not in the same league as his version of Everything I Do It For You, but it's definitely well worth a listen. I think we'll actually play out the episode with this. We'll just make a habit of playing out all of our episodes.
We can't play out
Bill
all
Tarmy
our
songs.
episodes
No,
with Bill Tarmy.
I think we should.
I mean, at least we're not going to have the YouTube infringement on our backs, are we? Because I don't think anyone's protecting Bill Tarmy's copyright at this stage. I have something else in the mailbag, actually, and this is from Legend of the Pod, Hannah Kelly. And she says, hello, just listened to your 1994 Top 40 Part 1 episode. Some thoughts from me. I know you only talk about 90s, but the best Winds Beneath My Wings cover is, so we're coming back to Bill Tarmy there.
Of course.
But the best version of that song is by Bette Midler in 1988 for the movie Beaches, which is a fantastic tearjerker I was obsessed with when I was younger. Both song and movie should get a nod, please. I think it's kind of fair enough. Maybe it is an 88 film, but I'm sure loads of people were watching in the early 90s, as you were yourself, Hannah, because, especially before the advent of streaming, we often wouldn't see films for a few years after they'd been in the cinemas, waiting for it to come on ITV. It would often take 2-3 years, maybe even more. So I think that's fair enough.
I'm going to allow it because, of course, Bette Midler duets with Krusty the Clown on that very song.
Yes.
On the Simpsons episode, Krusty Gets Cancelled, which we've discussed many times on the podcast before, and is one of my favourites, so I will allow it, yes.
Did you ever know that you're my hero? You're everything I would like to be.
You can fly higher than an eagle.
'Cause you are the wind beneath my wings.
And then she also says, I love New Kids on the Block. I went to see them in concert with my older cousins when I was about 6. So I guess 1991-ish. It was my first live gig and I didn't fully understand until I was there that I was actually going to see them in real life. I can clearly recall turning to my mum and asking if they were real. I came home with some merch, a cap and a bath towel, which I cherished for many years, plus a Donnie Wahlberg Barbie doll, which was purchased after. But yes, I agree, this chart song wasn't their best. So that's referring to the New Kids on the Block song that we talked about in the episode, which we all agreed was pretty duff.
6.
And then
6 is young for a first gig, I think.
Well,
I mean,
my response was, wow, 6 years old. And she says, 8th of May, 1990, Birmingham. So I've just looked up their UK tour and I've worked out that I was actually about to turn 5. So Hannah Kelly was 4 when she went to her first gig. And this is a proper gig. This is not, Bath Festival out in the park. This is actually New Kids on the Block in a Birmingham arena. Isn't that insane?
it really, well, I mean, it goes without saying, if any listeners can trump that, if you went to your first gig and you were any younger, then please do let us know. But I think Hannah might have everybody beaten on that. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. She does then ask us what my and your first gig was. For me, it was much later than that. I think I was 16, maybe even 17, and it was in 2002 or 2, I think, at Bristol Academy, Jurassic 5. So not 90s. But what about you, Stu?
Well, I'm around the same time and the very same venue, it has to be said. So I think it was 2003. Of course, Stereophonics, who else?
Mm-hmm.
I was on the mailing list. They were warming up to go on tour to support their album You Gotta Go There to Come Back. And they did Bristol Academy and a few other smaller venues. And the tickets were released to mailing list subscribers only, and it was £10. So I managed to talk Glyn into taking me and my friend Craig McCrell along to Bristol Academy to see the Phonics for my first ever gig. And I suspect Craig's as well, actually, come to think of it.
Very nice, yeah. Yeah, so you'd have been, how old would you have been then? Like 12 or something?
15.
15?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, yeah, sorry, I'm doing, my maths is terrible there. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so neither of us did our first gigs in the 90s, but if anyone listening, if your first gig was in the 90s, do let us know. We'd love to know who it was and where it was. So yeah, get in touch.
Yeah, if you went to see Shaka Demus and Pliers when you were 2, let us know.
And the final thing in the post bag is another message. It's a postcard, actually. The final postcard from Dad of the Pod, who is sending this from the Faroe Islands on his trip. I mean, he's back now, but this is obviously a long time coming in the post.
Yeah.
We'll probably be home before this postcard arrives. There are just 2 collections a week, while delivery to other countries is managed by one rather elderly chap on a rowing boat. That's what our landlady Erica told us anyway. She's an avid listener to your pod and was a bit upset by my calling her dog Eric the Faroese Elkhound a ferocious beast. As was Eric himself, so I'm avoiding him when I can. He looks at me rather in the way Alex looks at a pot of hummus. I am a big fan of hummus. I think I may have discovered something about the brown envelope Jeff slipped in my luggage. As I said, I was only deterred from burning it by Eric the Canine smoke detector, and in the end I just got rid of it by putting it through the letterbox of the prominent businessman it was addressed to, a close friend of the Faroe Islands president, it seems. In the national press here, it was stated that the president has contacted FIFA in an attempt to get the islands reinstated in the World Cup. Now, in light of the Lodge sweepstake affair, I don't think that can be a coincidence. Anyway, we're having a grand time here. The rain has stopped, or rather turned to sleet, so we definitely don't have to go out hiking. So thank you very much, Dad of the Pod, for your final postcard from the Faroe Islands. Good to have you back.
Yep, thanks for that. Welcome home, and interesting to have more light shed upon the sweepstake. So the idea was to get the Faroe Islands in the tournament and then go from there.
It sounds like it. Yeah, I did draw a link between the lodge and FIFA earlier in the episode, so I didn't realise that I'd actually struck upon something that was maybe really going on there. The final thing, Stu, for the bulletin board is now you asked me, I think the last episode or the episode before, for an update on the chart positions for the podcast, didn't you?
I did, yes.
And I have looked into this.
I can see you've got a couple of sheets of paper there as well, so this must be official.
This is hot off the fax machine here, so let me update you and the listeners where we are in the podcast charts. So we are. I don't bother with the national charts because obviously we don't trouble them. I just go for the more regional ones. So in the Greater Wessex Nostalgia podcast charts, we're currently sitting at number 11, which is up from 13 last time. So we've overtaken. Who have we overtaken? Oh, the Sexy 60s podcast. And Britain's classic Postboxes pod, which, according to this, sadly ceased production before Christmas. I'm not sure what caused them to go out of business. Actually, have you seen those new Postboxes around? They have like a solar panel on top, really brand new ones.
And you can put parcels in them now as well, can't you? They've got like a sort of hinged drawer that you can put parcels in now. It's not for me.
No, I wonder if that's what it did for the Britain's classic Postboxes pod. But they're no longer in the charts, which is partly why we're up 2 places. So that's good news anyway, up to 11th. And then in the East and Central Wiltshire Entertainment brackets other podcast charts, just to remind you, the reason we're in the East and Central Wiltshire section, even though I'm based in Bristol, you're based in Chippenham, is because obviously the podcast as a limited company is registered in Pewsey, which is more East Central. So that's why we are in those charts. But in that chart, we're currently at number 9, which is 3 down from 2 years ago, which is a bit of a shame. We've been overtaken by Derek and Diane's deep dive into Devizes and a couple of others. But then number 1 in that chart is, of course, as it has been for many years, Banquet of Banter with Stevie D, which is broadcast just from down the road off the A338 in Tidcombe. So well done to Stevie D for holding on to his number 1 spot. Hopefully next year we can get a little bit higher up those charts. It's a shame we're not in the top 10 of either anymore, because we were at number 9. Oh, no, so we are at number 9 now. So yeah, we are in the top 10 at least for one of them.
Well, we're moving in the right direction. I suppose all we can do is keep on trying, really. So Pewsey is like an enclave, isn't it? Like the Vatican City.
Yeah, more of a Cayman Islands, sort of inland Cayman Islands, I would say. Yeah. I've still never quite been able to get round where all the different parts of the company are registered, because we have a PO box in Pewsey, but we also have a PO box in Jersey. So I don't know where one, anyway, it's all very complicated. This is why we leave it to Jeff, isn't it? One
final thing on the bulletin board from me, and it's always sad when we come to record an episode and we have to report on the passing of a 90s legend. This time it's a 90s football managerial legend. Kevin Keegan has sadly passed away over the past couple of days as we record this. He also, of course, starred in one of the great adverts of the 90s, which is the advert in which the Honey Monster comes off the bench for Newcastle United and scores the winner.
Well, the game was heading for extra time. I just had to get the big fella off the bench.
Could this be their last chance now? In it comes! Monster to the far post! He scored! The Honey Monster scored in the last minute! He's in the money! It's the Honey! Great goal, Honey Monster!
That's football, Kev.
Sugar Puffs are delicious light puffs of wheat dressed in little honeyed jackets.
That's the ball. Now for the cup. Excuse me.
He turns! He lifts the cup! And Wembley goes monster mad!
He was a football legend for so many years, but particularly for us when he led that swashbuckling Newcastle team in the 90s. So, King Kev, we salute you.
Time now for What's the Most 90s, and this time, Stu, we're doing a more geographical one again. We've done this in the past. I'm asking you who the most 90s Scandinavian is.
Well, I mean, there are so many candidates for this category for the 90s from the arenas of both sport and music. I had a couple of runners-up who really ran this person close. Peter Schmeichel, of course, the Great Dane, the greatest goalkeeper of the 90s, also an Aston Villa legend, and the bald bloke from Aqua are the two just two of the Scandinavians that I was thinking about. But my winner is Lars Bohinen, the Norwegian midfielder who played for Nottingham Forest, Blackburn Rovers and Derby County in the 90s, also played for the Norwegian national team. And there are a couple of facts about him that I want to bring you. He once refused to play for Norway against France in protest after the French army started carrying out nuclear tests in the South Pacific. So he was a one-man protest against the French army and refused to play for Norway against them. And then another fact here, according to manager Frank Clark, Lars Bohinen had an extraordinary amount of demands for his potential contract with Nottingham Forest, asking for 50 clauses to be added, including getting a job for his wife, a new carpet for the home they put him in, a new car, and 6 round trips back to Oslo a year. The deal was never agreed.
Wow, 50 clauses.
Indeed, indeed. So yeah, not your regular footballer. I mean, he was absolutely brilliant for Nottingham Forest, and then moved to Blackburn, and I think his star waned a little bit. Then I think he did play his best stuff for Nottingham Forest in the early 90s, between 1993 and 1995. But just for those sort of strange little side notes to his career, I wanted to go for Lars Bohinen as my most 90s Scandinavian.
Very good. Yeah, you're right. There are so many footballers that could be in here. Just as you were talking, I was thinking of Martin Dahlin, Thomas Brolin, Larsen.
Henning Berg, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I mean, we could go on.
Absolutely loads, yeah. But I haven't gone for a sports person. I've actually gone for someone who is half Scandinavian, but I hope that's okay because I think they're so 90s. You might let me off. It is, of course, Ulrika Jonsson. She's half Swedish, half British, but she was born in Sollentuna in Sweden, so maybe that'll just swing it in her favour for me. Weather presenter on Good Morning Britain at the start of the 90s, then did Gladiators from 92 to the end of the decade. So really covering, a huge chunk of the decade just with that alone. But then obviously Shooting Stars was probably where we both came to enjoy her work the most, I think, because she was so good as one of the team captains with Vic and Bob playing the sort of, the Vic and Bob characters. Just worked really well. And she also presented the Eurovision Song Contest. Apparently, I didn't remember this, but she was there for some of the 90s, the later 90s broadcasts of that. So I think all of that CV, combined with the fact that she was very much tabloid fodder, as so many women were in the 90s, she was just all over our TV screens, in the newspapers. And I'm hoping you'll forgive the fact that she's half British and accept her as my choice for the most 90s Scandinavian.
I completely accept that. She was absolutely brilliant on Shooting Stars. And yeah, I think she did host the 1998 Eurovision Song Contest because we won it in 97 with Katrina and the Waves. And then I think it was from Birmingham in 1998. And yeah, she hosted it. Terry Wogan comes out at the start, does a little bit of presenting with her, and then goes back up to the commentary box. I know all this because I watched the entire 1998 Eurovision Song Contest in the first lockdown when the actual Eurovision Song Contest for 2020 got cancelled. We decided to watch a classic one, and that was the one we chose. So I can confirm she did host it that year. I think Lars, for all of his quirks, is going to have to stand aside here. Ulrika is definitely our most 90s Scandinavian.
Congratulations, Ulrika.
I'm sure she's thrilled. Time then for the main topic of tonight's episode, and we are going to be talking about our memories of radio in the 90s. We've obviously done a lot about TV in the past, we've done a lot about film, but radio is the other medium that we will have consumed so much of in the 90s, and I don't think we've really discussed it that much on the show in all the time we've been doing it. So I'm really looking forward to this and speaking about some of my personal memories of radio in the 90s. Alex, I'm really looking forward to hearing yours. But what I want to start with, I can't hold this in any longer, is I just want to show you this. Can you describe this for the listeners?
It's a small moulded plastic football boot, Umbro football boot, black, of course, for the age. Much smaller than I thought it was going to be, actually. About the size of maybe the length of a biro, a big biro. Yes, maybe a 2/3 scale replica of an Umbro football boot. But it is, of course, an AM FM radio, isn't it, Stu?
It absolutely is. Once we discussed this on our 5th birthday special, I, of course, then had to trawl eBay and see if I could find one. And I was lucky enough to get one. And let's just see if this comes through here. Can you hear that? Still working?
Oh, yeah, I can just about make something out.
Just about get some static. Rather fittingly, that's tuned to 102.2, which, of course, back in the good old days would have been GWR, but is now Hart Wiltshire or something. I don't know what it is. But this is one of the 2 radios that I would have consumed most of my radio on in the 90s. This is the one that I listened to the second half of England versus Tunisia on in World Cup '98. You can see just there on the back there's a little headphone jack.
Mm-hmm.
So I would have
Yeah.
either been carrying it in my hand or had it in my pocket and had the headphones in so as not to annoy anyone else. And this is just a brilliant little artifact. I'm so pleased that I was able to find it, and even more so that it still works because it brings back so many special memories. The other one for me is the Prin's Time Cube, which I've not been able to find one of so far, but I don't need to because the original still exists. It's my dad's clock radio that has been by his bedside for, I should just getting on for 40 years. I think the radio might even be older than me. And it's exactly as you would imagine it. It's a cube with a clock on the front, a speaker on the top. I don't think he uses the radio anymore. I think it's just used as a clock, and the digital clock is just hanging on because obviously it's nearly 40 years old, but it's still there. It's still in use today, and that is another one of the radios that I would have listened to a lot in the 90s. So, seeing as I've rattled on about this for long enough without even being prompted, do you have any recollections about the actual devices that you listen to radio on?
I do indeed. Well, actually, I'm going to move my laptop up and see if you can see over. Actually, it's too dark. You can't really see it. So that's useless podcasting there, but you'll have to leave it in now because I'm not saying it again. But I have a Sony Dreamcube over there, which is basically the same thing that you've just described, which I think I would have bought or received as a gift probably just about in the 90s, maybe early 2000s. I think in the late 90s. So still using it as my alarm clock every morning. And I do listen to the radio. I have it set on Radio 5 Live to be my wake up call. So that was a big one. Before that, I had to just like a cassette radio, the classic cassette radio with the like oblong with the two speakers at either end, the aerial on top, which was made by Boots. Back when Boots did branded electronics. I don't know who actually made the electronics before they put the Boots logo on it, but yeah, you could buy Boots electronics back then. And yeah, I think they were the two radios I had, probably the only two. I don't think I would have had my own thing before that. It would have been just listening to my parents' radios wherever they were. I remember distinctly a number of the classic small portable radios with the aerial, all covered in paint because my dad used them in his, when he was painting and decorating, which was his job for a lot of my childhood. And there'd be one in the bathroom, there'd be one in the kitchen. So yeah, just there. But we also had a hi-fi, which would occasionally be tuned in for the radio. So we had various radios all over the place. Brilliant.
I remember graduating to my first, can we call it a ghetto blaster type stereo? Bless you.
I think so. I muted it so the listeners would never know that I'd sneezed. Yes, I do. I know what you mean. Yes. Yeah, a ghetto. Yeah. I think you can call that a ghetto blast. It's not, when you think of a ghetto blast, you probably think of one of those cool like boom boxes from 80s b-boying videos, but I guess there's a whole spectrum of ghetto blasters out there.
Yeah, mine never left my bedroom, and it would have needed about 15 of those really massive batteries as well to power it anywhere else, to power it without it being on the mains. But mine was a Matsui, that famous 90s electronics brand. And it had 2 tape decks and a CD, so I could make the mixtapes for the car on that. And yeah, it was really exciting to get my own one of those for the first time as well. I don't remember it being a birthday present or anything like that. I think it was an out-of-season gift, which must have made it doubly exciting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe the Umbro football group by then just wasn't cutting it anymore. I needed something else.
Yeah, with a bit more fidelity, a bit more bass. My brother had a boombox that he was given in the 90s, like a big chunky one with a CD player on top, which I think he got from Richer Sound. What is that brand? I think it's spelled AIWA.
My parents had an Iwa Hi-Fi.
I totally forgot about that. We should get them on as a future pod sponsor, actually, now that I think about it.
So we've discussed how we listened. I suppose the next question should be, where did we do most of our listening? And I know what the answer is for me. In my parents' bed. So when I was a lot smaller, and I was obviously going to bed quite a bit earlier than my parents, before being moved into my own bedroom, I would be allowed to go into my parents' bedroom and listen to the radio. I remember it specifically being referred to as having the radio on for some company,
Mhm.
I don't know why that would be, or why we started referring to it as that, but that's what it was. And I think the idea was just that there would be, a reassuring voice there, or somebody, something to keep me company while I was alone in the room. And I'll maybe do a little bit of reading. I have a memory of reading my mum's magazines like Woman and Woman's Weekly
Yeah.
while sitting in their bed, and then I would drift off, and presumably my dad would carry me back into my own bed. So that's a big memory I have of listening to the radio in the 90s. It does link in actually with something I've never discussed on this pod before, and something which I remembered while I was thinking about this for the episode. I don't know if my parents remember this. I don't know if they know, but I'm going to talk about it now.
I am up for any sort of content, however libelous or potentially relationship breaking they are. So yeah,
Oh, no, no,
please
no.
go ahead.
This is all on me, and it's a case of I might not be here today, etc., etc. If this had
Oh,
gone
okay.
if this had gone any more wrong than it had.
Hmm.
So I'm in my parents' bedroom. The radio's on. The bedside lamp is on, which is, if you can imagine a 90s lamp, the bulb is on top of like a sort of plastic ball, and then there's one of those big sort of, what do you call it, like concertinaed lampshades over it. Can you imagine
Yes.
it? Do you know
Yeah,
what I
yeah.
mean?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I don't know. I must have been 5 or 6. I'd gone to the bathroom, and I came back, and I don't know how I thought or why I thought that it would be a good idea to do this, but I remember thinking, what would happen if I got some wet toilet paper and put it on top of the light bulb?
We've all thought it. We've all wondered
We've
it.
all thought it, and I can tell you what you're imagining happens when you do that does happen. So I did that, and I remember watching the water slide down the side of the light bulb. Then I remember there being a huge crack and being plunged into total darkness, and then diving back into the bed.
Hmm.
And I can't remember I don't know if it was in summer or winter, so I don't know if it caused like a blackout, whether it took all the fuses out in the house and all the power went off, and my mum and dad shot up to see if I was okay. They obviously saw that the light bulb had exploded. Basically, there were shards of glass everywhere, and I'm not sure if they ever connected the dots and found the paper, or if they even remember about it happening. But if they do, I'm going to reveal exclusively now that I nearly killed myself when I was 5 with an exploding light bulb.
Well, so the actual light bulb blew up, exploded. That's like, I don't know what's happened there with the physics of that, but that sounds very dramatic.
Well, as I remember it, that's what happened. Maybe the huge concertinaed lampshade actually did a good job of protecting me from the blast.
Hmm.
But that's how I remember it. I mean, when Glyn hears this, he might remember the incident and tell me where I'm going wrong. But that's how I remember it, and that is intrinsically linked to a memory of listening to the radio as well, because the radio had been on.
Yeah. Well, have you ever tried that since the wet tissue on the light bulb technique?
No, I haven't. That's a rare instance of me actually learning a lesson.
I haven't got any dramatic near-death experiences related to radio, I'm afraid. But my early memories of radio to sort of match yours, I would say, would be the sound of, to set the scene. It's an autumn or a winter early evening. It's 5 o'clock. CBBC's just finished. The theme tune to Grange Hill has faded out, and there's steam coming from the kitchen. There's the smell of jacket potatoes in the oven. All the windows are steaming up, and from the living room, I can hear the sounds of Big Ben's chimes coming from the radio as PM on Radio 4 begins.
I thought you were about to say it was New Year then.
No, it's not.
Jacket potatoes on January the 1st. Yes, please.
No, it's just the sound of 5 o'clock on Radio 4, and yeah, PM, which is still on to this day.
It's PM at 5 p.m. with Hugh Sykes and Libby Forbert.
Tonight, President Bush offers to cut US chemical weapons stockpiles by 80%. What does his new offer mean? Mrs. Thatcher pledges we'll hunt down the deal bombers. The private security guards row takes a new turn. And why your country needs you if you're young, fit and female.
And whoever you are, good evening. The news summary is read by Brian Perkins.
As far as I know, they still start with the Big Ben chimes. I'm not sure. I don't actually listen to it, but that is a very evocative memory for me of early childhood, really. And that is, my first memory of radio. Before I was choosing what was on, was having any sort of say in that. So that's where it began for me. Where did radio listening go for you post your parents' bed? Early days.
Post exploding light bulb.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't put me off, I can assure you of that. So the next thing I remember really is, we spoke about this on our summer holiday episode last year or the year before. I can't remember when we made that one, but we spoke about it on that episode. The fact that I used to stay with my grandparents a lot in the school holidays, and one thing that they would do, particularly in the morning, was they would listen to Terry Wogan on Radio 2. So I have a lot of memories of in the mornings getting ready to go off on our daily walk into the town centre to get the groceries, listening to Terry Wogan's morning show. And they were huge fans of this, to the extent that they had a couple of the tie-in books lying around the house, which I read as well during the slower points of the summer holidays. So yeah, Terry Wogan, the preeminent radio broadcaster of the 90s.
I hate these people who make raw mash of your affections. At 11 and a quarter minutes past 7 in the morning. It's all the new technology, as I said here. It's a bit frightening. There's a new machine, as you come in to give you the coffee. You program what you want. Cappuccino, espresso, con leche, sin leche. And you press all the buttons and the same old rubbish comes out. It's exactly the same. It's 88 to 91 FM, Radio 2 from the BBC, in case you were wondering what you'd stumbled across, and I was sitting there aghast with horror.
And I suppose if we were listening a little bit later, it might have been my first exposure to the wonderful Ken Bruce and Popmaster as well, which I listen to when I get the chance still today.
I have to say, I don't have very much experience of Radio 2, really, but I do remember Terry Wogan and hearing little bits of that every now and again in the morning, and just knowing that he was sort of like the Don of daytime radio. And then, Ken Bruce, of course. I have to say, I don't know if I've ever listened to a single Popmaster. Everyone seems to know what it is and worship it, but it's just not something I've ever listened to. I know the premise, I think, and I'd like to give it a go if it was bands I like, but what exactly is the premise again? Actually remind me.
So there are 2 contestants every morning. Each contestant gets 10 questions. Each question is worth 3 points, apart from the 3 bonus questions, which are worth 6 points. And each contestant gets to choose between 2 bonus categories as well. So they get the choice of 2, they pick one, and that becomes their set of bonus questions. I can't believe you've never heard it. I can't believe I've just had to explain the greatest radio quiz in UK history to you.
I thought it was something like you had to name 5 songs by an artist.
Right. Yeah. So you're kind of right with that. So that's 3 in 10, which is at the end. So whichever of the 2 contestants has won, then goes through to 3 in 10.
Okay.
Ken will give them an artist, and they have to name 3 of their top 75 charting songs in 10 seconds. And then whether they do that or not decides the level of prize that they win.
Okay. I have a feeling that Mark from Glasgow might have been. Has he been on Popmaster?
Mark from Glasgow has definitely been on Popmaster. Yeah. So I remember listening to it. He was on with Mark Goodyear a couple of years ago. Well, if we weren't listening that much to Radio 2, we definitely were listening to our local station, the wonderful GWR. Just seeing that logo with the white letters on the pink and blue background brings back so many evocative memories. We got some family photos of a holiday that we took to, I think it's Padstow, and Glyn's got a wonderful GWR t-shirt on in these photos. It's absolutely superb. Let's not forget when we did our episode on live music in the 90s with Glyn, he spoke about going to GWR to get his tickets for the Rolling Stones, didn't he?
Yes, of course, yeah.
Yes, he absolutely did. He was listening to the radio, and I think they just said, we've got some tickets for the Rolling Stones in London. Phone up if you want some, and then you'll have to come and collect them. And that's what he did, and he managed to get his tickets through GWR. Absolutely wonderful.
That's very cool, yeah. I'm guessing this was when it was based in Bristol. I think as it always was, down by the harbour side.
Were there not 2 different... Was there a GWR in Swindon?
Oh, there could well have been, yeah. There could have been.
I think there might have been a Wiltshire and then a Bath and Bristol station. But they were both under the GWR umbrella, I think.
So GWR, for anyone not from the Wessex region, was basically just our version of of local music radio, wasn't it? I guess there would be variations in every corner of the UK. I can't actually think of any that weren't here. I suppose there was like Greater London Radio or something like that, but it was just your usual sort of pop music interspersed with local news and weather, national news probably every now and again, travel, and then adverts, which would be things like caution building plastics and yeah, I don't know, the Oasis swimming pool and things like that, right?
Absolutely, it was omnipresent in our house around the early to mid 90s, and I have a distinct memory. I've never tracked it down. I'd love to hear it again. I mean, I don't know how I would find it. But again, like you, the radio was on in the kitchen, and it must have been Christmas 93, because I remember there was a trailer on for something, and there was just a voice saying, "Goodbye, 1993. Hello, 1994." And I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was an advert or a trailer, but I can hear it clear as day, exactly as it was spoken on that advert now. And I'd love to track it down again. But yeah, GWR. And I listened to this for quite a while in the 90s, probably right up until the end of my needing to have the radio on for a bit of company in the evenings before I went to bed, when the midweek evening show was being presented by a presenter called Mel Everett. If I say that name, does that bring back any memories?
Yes, it does. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah, so I used to listen to her show, and one of the things I remember being discussed on her show, actually, again, very clearly, a bit like the trailer I was just talking about, is there being a discussion on whether All Saints were going to continue as a band. And I remember Mel Everett saying something like, "Oh, I give it 6 months. I give it 6 months, and then Shaznay will walk out," or something like that. That was what she was saying. But I had a little bit of a look at Mel to see if she was still going, and I'm pleased to say she is. She's got a show now on BBC Radio Devon.
Oh, that's good to know. Very comforting. Did she present Late Night Love? That's the only show I can remember sort of discovering a bit later on, I suppose, as I was maybe a tween, when it would be people would phone in, I think, and talk about relationship stuff.
I think that was hosted by a guy called Graham Torrington.
I was going to say Graham. I had Graham in my mind, and I thought, have I imagined that? But there was a phone in, right?
It was, yeah, and I can't believe I don't have this written down because it's very funny. But Late Night Love, I think, was it kind of been accidentally played because somebody would have stopped it. Somebody must surely have realised. But I remember it being played in the coach when we were on the way back from our trip to the Millennium Dome in Year 6.
Okay.
And obviously the conversation on Late Night Love was a little bit fruity. I mean, it wasn't sort of completely not safe for work, but to a bunch of Year 6s who were probably a bit overtired by that point, it was hilarious. It was unbelievable what we were hearing. And yeah, the driver, I guess, must have just had GWR on in the bus, and the teachers didn't stop him when it came round to Late Night Love. So I can't believe I didn't remember that before we started recording, but I'm glad I have now.
It's such a nice memory, the idea of being on a school coach on the way back, and the radio's on, and everyone's listening to the radio, and it's probably dark outside, and yeah, just quite evocative. And local radio as well, which is, I mean, I just think in general, radio I find very comforting. Maybe I should be saving this for my final thoughts, but I've always found it a great comfort, and I still do. You know, that's why I still listen to it in the mornings and when I go to bed at the end of the evening. I just find, much in the same way that you did when you were in bed as a young child and you needed that sort of voice there. That is what radio provides, and podcasts have almost filled that hole, but not completely for me. They haven't fully been able to replicate that feeling of being in the company of other people and that sort of friendly, just vibe that you get from radio. So I do have a lot of love for it, and I should have saved these thoughts for the end of the episode, but you know, they've come up now.
Absolutely lovely thoughts, and seeing as how you've spent those now, I'm going to keep mine in the locker for the end of the episode. All right?
Damn it. I've gone too early.
One more thing on GWR before we move on. The Black Thunders.
Yes, they came up in another episode, didn't they?
They did. So these were, 4x4s?
The Suzuki Vitara style, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. That used to roam the county, and then you could, I don't know, if you spotted a Black Thunder, you could go up to it and win a fiver or something. There was always a competition going where if you spot one of the Black Thunders out and about today, you can win a GWR t-shirt. But I didn't realise that every station nationwide in the GWR mould had some Black Thunders and had the similar thing going on. I thought it was just GWR specific. So I'm not going to lie, a little bit disappointed to find that out.
Yeah, I found that out only when I was researching that episode of the podcast, when I was trying to find an image of one of those 4x4s for our social media. But it is, yeah, it does slightly ruin the fairy tale, doesn't it?
Can we buy a Black Thunder? Are there any out there?
Oh, that's what we should be driving around in.
Oh, yes, please.
We need to compile a perfect 5-car garage for the podcast and be up there with like the Italian 90 Fiat Panda.
The Jaguar XJ220, and for our outside broadcasts, a Black Thunder.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I have a couple of things here relating to pretending to be on radio. So let me take you back to a nondescript day in Year 5 at Caution Primary School, 1998. Miss Rigby would have been my teacher. And I believe this was just after break time. So we've been out, we've had the morning playtime. We come back in, and I remember she asked us to sit on the carpet, and beside her on her desk, she had her Panasonic stereo, which she used to bring in for special occasions when she needed it. And then once we'd all sat down, she said, "Something's been on the radio over break time. I recorded it for you. I want you to listen to it." She pressed play on a tape, and what played was a news report that was reporting that aliens had landed in Wiltshire and were on their way to Caution.
Okay.
Now, some kids took this very, very badly indeed. I remember there being tears in some cases. I remember there being a little bit of screaming and shouting. But I was completely calm because I at once recognised that it was Miss Rigby herself who was reading this news report on the tape, and I could hear the Caution Primary School playtime in the background of the news report.
Okay.
So she must have done it in the classroom while we'd all gone out. And I think the idea of the exercise was to think about, okay, so if this was real and aliens did land, what would we do? How would we react? Would we try to make friends with them? Would we go and see what they wanted? Would we react angrily? Would we strike first? What would we do? How would we treat them? And obviously the idea of the exercise is to say, if you meet somebody different from you, then you shouldn't treat them any differently. You should try and welcome them and be fair and treat them as one of your own, which is obviously something that we should all live by. But I just remember this fake news report being the in to it, and it's always stuck with me. That to me, it was so clearly Miss Rigby herself who had recorded it. I mean, you could even get one of the different teachers to do it or put a voice on.
Yeah.
I mean, we're year 5, we're like 9.
I mean, to be honest, it sounds like a lot of people did fall for it. So maybe
it did the job.
maybe it's for the best that she didn't make it too authentic. Otherwise, she could have had a full-scale riot on her hands.
And maybe one of the reasons that I picked up on this so quickly as well was that by then I was already a dab hand at recording my own radio shows onto cassette tape. I think I've mentioned this a couple of times before on the show, but myself and my best friend, Matt Coe, we like nothing more than to get hold of a blank tape and the tape recorder that I told you about that I got from my granddad that had the built-in microphone and the speaker so that we could record on it, rewind, listen back to it. And we just used to love making up our own shows and interviewing people and making up adverts. Sometimes we just repeat adverts that we'd heard on the TV or the radio to be the adverts on the tape. And if there is one thing that I don't have from the 90s that I wish I still had, it would be those tapes. I've got no idea where they are. They probably got taped over or thrown out a long time ago, but I just wish I still had them so that I could hear myself and Matt in those times. Also, I know I interviewed like my nan and my granddad and other people who aren't with us anymore in some cases, and I would just love to hear the sorts of things that we talked about and what was going on those tapes. I know I sang on a few of them as well and was trying to do my own sort of music on them, and I'd love to hear that. So yeah, whatever I said in the 5th birthday episode about the item from the 90s I most like to bring back, it's definitely those tapes.
I mean, yeah, you and me both. I would absolutely love to hear them. If only we could play any clip now. But sadly, we don't hold on to these things at the time, do we? Because we don't ever think when we're 6 years old running around in Corsham Town Centre, we never think we're going to be the 9th best nostalgia-based podcast in the North Central Wiltshire region, or whatever it is. And so we don't retain these things.
This is it. You never know what's going to happen in life. We could have got so much mileage out of these tapes. One of the main things I remember going to sleep over at Matt's house on a Friday night, I think. And Matt's dad had a guest in the house as well. I don't know if it was work related, but this guy was Australian and his name was Pete. And I remember me and Matt interviewed him for ages about what it was like in Australia. You know, what was a national anthem? What's it like? What are the cars like? How do people behave? All that sort. Because obviously, to us, it was so far away. We'd only ever seen it on TV and like Neighbours and Home and Away and some Australian kids' TV shows, I suppose, like Round the Twist. But there was somebody who was actually from there. And I remember we just sat and talked to him for ages. And, mate, I'd love to hear it. I really would.
Right. So where did you move after GWR? Did you move on to another radio station?
I did move stations, yeah. When I then got really into football, I remember crossing over to 5 Live and listening to a lot of commentaries on there. Mainly because I think when we started going to watch non-league football, we'd always have 5 Live on in the car on the way to the match. So we'd listen to the build-up to whatever the Premier League was that day and the nationwide leagues as it would have been then. And then obviously on the way back, we'd have Sports Report and Final Score. And to this day, the Sports Report theme is my favourite radio theme, I think. If I'm driving home from Corsham Town, who I go and see a few times a season, I always make sure I'm listening to 5 Live for Sports Report so I can get the results on the way back, because it just seems right. That's just the way it should be.
5 o'clock, time for a very special Sports Report. This is Ian Payne. Welcome to the 50th anniversary edition of Sports Report. The headlines tonight: Stevenage keep the non-league cup dream alive.
Swindon comes forward yet again. The ball pumped into the middle of the field, and the referee has blown the whistle. And Stevenage have beaten Swindon Town by 2-1.
Emily were also dreaming.
Corner to Emily. It's from the right this time. The captain, Ian Banks, to take it. Here he comes. Banks, right-footed in. And the header is in! The header's in from Paul David for Emily. The non-leaguers have equalised. And the villagers of Emily in that centenary stand are going absolutely wild. Paul David has got the goal. It's West Ham 1, Emily 1.
John Hartson, though, got the winner for West Ham. Liverpool are out, so are Southampton. Port Vale hold Arsenal to a goalless draw. Aston Villa have a lucky escape at Pompey, 2-0 down at one stage.
Draper now on to Staunton. Portsmouth have to be careful with the challenges inside the area. Oh, McLaughlin's given it away to Draper. It's very crowded, though. Can Taylor get his shot in? No, he can't. Can Portsmouth counter-attack? Back come Villa. Draper was coming back from an offside position. Defenders be caught, and the goal eventually is scored by Grayson. Simon Grayson scores.
Watford draw 1-1 with Sheffield Wednesday. Leeds, Leicester and Blackburn all score 4 and go through. In rugby, Northampton beat Bedford in the Tetley's Bitter Cup. In cricket, England A comfortably beat Kenya by 148 runs in the opening one-day international in Nairobi. All the details coming up, as well as an appreciation of 50 years of Sports Report from Cliff Morgan. But first, as we've been saying for the past 26 years, the classified football results from James Alexander Gordon.
The FA Challenge Cup, sponsored by Littlewoods, third round. Arsenal 0, Port Vale 0. Barnsley 1, Bolton Wanderers 0. Blackburn Rovers 4, Wigan Athletic 2.
Absolutely, yeah. I think we talked about this with Brother of the Pod, didn't we, back in an early episode? But we definitely talked about the nostalgia that comes from that theme tune. And I think we played a little audio sort of montage, didn't we, at the end of the episode with that? Because for me as well, it's such an evocative piece of nostalgic radio music, the Sports Report theme. And yeah, I was the same. We would always have it on if we were coming back from somewhere on a Saturday. Always in the car. I associate it with being in the car more than any other theme tune or any sort of radio show. That was the car thing, really. I suppose if you were at home, you would just be, maybe you'd be watching Final Score or something, I don't know. But yeah, very much in the car.
One of my favourite car-based football memories, we weren't actually going anywhere. I think I might have been cleaning the car or cleaning the inside of the car for my dad, and I had the radio on. This would have been the famous Silver Cavalier. And I remember it coming over on the news that Eric Cantona had retired from football. So this puts this at May 1997, I think. It must have been when he retired. And I remember rushing in and telling my dad, it's just been on the radio, Eric Cantona's retired. And he didn't believe me. and we had to wait for it to come round again later on the radio or on the TV news.
Yeah.
And then he finally believed me when it came on then that Cantona had retired. But yeah, there's also a memory I have of when the Champions League was on ITV, and it was a final that Real Madrid were playing and Steve McManaman was playing for them. So I think it might have been 99, possibly. And I wasn't allowed to stay up for the second half, so I listened to the second half commentary on the old football boot.
Yeah, I think listening to football commentary, I think of Five Live as well, obviously, and brushing my teeth, being in the family bathroom and it being dark, and yeah, Monday or Tuesday night would be the football nights.
Mm-hmm.
This was long before the days of football on Thursday and Fridays, and maybe even Wednesdays. I suppose must have still been their European night, but this would have been mid-90s, so domestic football Mondays and Tuesdays only, and always sort of hoping it would be Norwich, but it never would be because we were in the Division 1 as it was at that point, so it would always be, Premier League. But yeah, that's another big Radio 5 memory for me is the evening commentaries in the midweek.
My two favourite radio moments of the 90s are related to sport. You might not be surprised to hear.
No.
One of them is a clip that we've played many times on this show before. It is Jonathan Pearce's fantastic off-the-cuff commentary of the aforementioned Eric Cantona's Kung Fu Kick at Selhurst Park in 1995, which always bears a re-listen.
Frail side to his temperament, the mad side of genius. Cantona is dismissed. Where can there be a place in the game for a man of such extravagant talent, a man of such wicked temperament, a man who has been quite rightly dismissed, a man who has now jumped. Oh my goodness me! He has kicked, he's punched a fan. Eric Cantona has jumped in and scissor Kung Fu Kick a fan. Manchester United fans are coming across. I have never seen as disgraceful an incident as that in all my years in football. Eric Cantona should be thrown out of the game for that sort of incident. I care not one jot about his supreme talent. He launched himself 6 feet into the crowd and Kung Fu kicked a supporter who was without a shadow of a doubt giving him lip, without a shadow of a doubt giving him stick.
That's absolutely wonderful, isn't it? It doesn't get much better than that.
It is. It's as we've pointed out before, many other people have said, he starts off at such a high register, and then when he gets sent off, he's at his max. So he's got nowhere to go when Cantona launches himself into the crowd. So it makes it incredibly entertaining to listen to.
And the other one is, I didn't hear it at the time, but this is one of the most famous radio moments of the 90s. It's a phone-in show. It's Danny Baker and Danny Kelly, and it's the Dundee United fans' wooden bow tie.
And this will be Gordon ringing up about his anorak, will it? Gordon! Gordon, how are you?
Hiya, Danny.
Who is this?
I've got football memorabilia and I've got a footballer in the supermarket.
Okay, go on.
The football memorabilia was when I was about 9. I'm now about 50-odd, so it's going back a bit.
Yeah.
But I asked my dad if he'd make me a bow tie.
Hang on. No, hang on.
What?
Just say that again.
Well, that's legit. I asked my dad if he'd make me a bow tie.
You'd make Now, first time ever on Radio 5 Live, the sentence, I asked my father to make me a bow tie. I'm sorry, that sentence ends here. This is already my favourite call ever. Kids asked your dad to make you a train, yeah? A boat. At some kind of railway station. You asked your father?
Well, it made a difference for a scarf, right? I wanted someone with
bow tie?
With my team's name on it.
Which team would that be, sir? I'd love to wear a bow tie with my team's name on it. What team is that?
Dundee United.
Okay, cool. It's great. Go on.
But they're just called United. So he made it, and it was wee black triangles, the pointy bits.
Yeah, of course.
And it was white across the middle, and it had United written right across the middle. But it was made out of plywood.
No! This is too good. We're going to have to play an advert. We're going to have to play an advert. We're going commercial. It'll be an advert for the next 20 minutes. I'm sorry, Gordon. I'm sorry. We're not. As you know, we usually plough on with as we are here. But you're wearing a plywood bow tie with Dundee United. We're just United written across it.
And it was 2 feet wide by a foot. And it was tied around my neck with a big leather strap. I charged away the game, absolutely delighted and delirious. But by half time I was, Quasimodo didn't.
What did you say when he handed you this thing? He said, "Here's son, here you go, son. Here's your bow tie. Clank, 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 and here's the big leather strap to tie to your neck.
Oh, my God. I weighed about a stone and a half.
I bet. So, you must have ended up sort of with one curvature of the spine, didn't you?
Yeah, but he saw the error of his weight, so next week he produced a big pole, and I went away in the match like a Roman centurion, you know.
What was the pole for, sorry?
The pole, the bow tie was strapped to the pole, like a Roman standard. So I marched it, but of course...
Like a Roman standard, you're making it worse, don't keep doing this.
Oh, Gordon, this is my favourite ever, and I've been doing this a while.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm gone.
I listened to this just yesterday, coincidentally, because for some reason. But yeah, it's very funny, and it's a great example of football phone-ins, which was another thing I listened to on Radio 5 Live a lot. 606. Weirdly, I listened to a lot of the David Mellor era. He did it for a long time, and I don't really know why he did it. I suppose he was a big football fan, but he was predominantly or ostensibly a Tory politician. So it's a bit odd that he did that. I don't really remember the Danny Baker era, which is a shame because I much prefer Danny Baker as a broadcaster to David Mellor. But yeah, it was something that was always on.
I mean, when Danny Baker was doing 606, he made it a lot like his other radio shows, which was that he didn't want it to be like 606 is now, like, oh, I've been to the Arsenal today, I'm going to phone up and talk about how I think they played and who I think they should sign. The sort of thing Danny Baker was asking for was, has anybody ever made you any club merchandise? Which is where the Dundee United wooden bow tie came in, or have you ever bumped into a footballer in the supermarket?
Yeah.
That sort of thing. And
which is much more interesting.
Well, yeah, of course, it's always going to be, yeah.
Following on from GWR then would be Radio 1 for me. I remember there being a moment where I realised that Radio 1 was what I really should be listening to for my music. It was such a step up from GWR. No offense to GWR.
How dare you, sir?
But Radio 1 was just clearly better DJs, better programming, didn't have any adverts. The DJs didn't talk over the music so much, just better personalities. And yeah, there was a bit of a crossover period where I was sort of listening to both. Maybe I was listening to Late Night Love in the evenings, but then at the end of school, I'd be listening to Chris Moyles. And Chris Moyles was my gateway into Radio 1. I remember someone at school, my friend Thomas Watts, saying how he listened to Chris Moyles and describing some stuff. And I was thinking, oh, that sounds quite funny. And then listening to it in his car, I think on the way back from school and thinking, yeah, this is actually like a genuinely entertaining person. Not just that someone who is quite good at, doing patter in between the songs. This is someone who you can listen to in their own right. And actually, I'd rather listen to him than the songs he's going to play.
Thomas Watts must have passed his driving test fairly early then.
He wasn't driving. It was his parents would have been driving us. I mean, I look back now and Chris Moyles just made me cringe a lot. And I think there was quite a lot of quite unpleasant sort of just mannerisms and things that he did when he was on Radio 1. I think I'm sure he's a lot better now, as we all are. This was the 90s. After all, we've all grown up since then. But yeah, it was Moyles, and then Mark and Lard would have been, I think, the early afternoon slot maybe, and then Simon Mayo, Joe Wiley, all those sort of people. And I obviously really remember the top 40 countdown. Well, we've got to talk about that. The top 40 countdowns on Sunday afternoons. So Mark Goodyear would do the official chart show. Actually, I do remember listening to Radio 1 at the beginning of the 90s. It's probably one of my earlier radio memories before GWR would have been listening to the charts when I was, 5, 6, 7. And I remember Everything I Do by Bryan Adams being, in the charts for weeks on end and trying to record that off the radio. And
Glory
Wet,
days.
Yeah, and Wet, Wet, Wet being there for even longer, I think. So the early memories of Radio 1. But yeah, and later in the decade, it was Mark Goodyear doing a top 40 countdown, going head to head, of course, with Dr. Fox, with the Pepsi chart show on Capital, which I knew at the time wasn't as good. I had to look this up. I couldn't remember why it was different. But it was different, wasn't it? Because, well, not only did it have adverts in it, which was a big problem, but it also, the countdown itself included radio airplay, I believe. And then the top 10s were the same for both Radio 1 and the Pepsi chart show. But yeah, the Pepsi chart show included radio airplay, so it wasn't a really accurate view of the top 40. But apparently, looking at Wikipedia for this, the Pepsi chart show had higher ratings consistently throughout the 90s, which really surprised me, actually, because I thought, why would you listen to that instead? But I guess people did.
Well, in keeping with our CBBC and CITV divide, I was an avowed Dr. Fox man.
Of course you were.
And
I'm so not surprised.
I used to listen to that in the bath on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, very bath time sort of radio show, wasn't it?
I'm just a sucker for commercial broadcasting, what can I say?
You absolutely are, yeah.
Guess which channel I watched the World Cup final on Sunday?
You didn't, surely.
Oh, I love Ali McCoist. Come on.
I mean, I do like Ali McCoist, and I can't stand Guy Mowbray. I actually watched it on Radio 1. I actually watched it on BBC 1 with the Radio 5 commentary on it. That's the best way.
Well, I mean, that's perfect. That's brilliant, isn't it? Marrying up the best commentary with the pictures is, it's great.
But back to Radio 1, did you have much experience of Radio 1? Did you ever get involved in those sort of big personalities presenting it in the late 90s, early 2000s?
I'm afraid not. I only really, and it was sort of forced upon me, but I only really listened to Radio 1 a lot later, maybe mid to late noughties when I started an office job, and the guy I was working with insisted on listening to Radio 1, but by this point it was the same 7 or 8 songs over and over again every hour on the hour. Unfortunately, I didn't experience the glory days of Radio 1 in the 90s. I think Danny Baker might have been on Radio 1 as well for a short stint. I think he might have done the weekend breakfast or something like that, but it wasn't very successful on that channel, and he was moved around a bit. But yeah, I know that Mark and Lard did the morning breakfast for a while, and that's still regarded as one of the great morning breakfast shows, I think, even though it didn't last for very long. But it's definitely got a cult following these days.
I think it was something like 8 months, because they came in late notice to replace Chris Evans, who'd left, in a bit of a huff because he couldn't get Fridays off, could he? So he could do TFI Fridays. And he was obviously a massive Radio 1 breakfast show presenter. And then when Mark and Lard went, because they were so esoteric, I'm amazed they ever got that job. And then Zoe Ball came in, and then Sarah Cox, and obviously they're stalwarts of broadcasting these days. But I don't know if you've noticed this, I'm sure you have, but Radio 2 now is playing so many songs that I think of as my songs. That is a really good indication that you've hit a certain age when Radio 2 is playing your music.
Well, this is a point I was going to make earlier on when we were talking about Radio 2 and Terry Wogan in the first place. I would guess that the sort of songs that Radio 2 were playing then would have been 60s and 70s songs, whereas the songs that Radio 2 are going to play now are songs from 90s, early 2000s, just because that's where the demographic is, and that's the sort of songs that demographic wants to listen to. So we will have moved with the times. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's sort of sad, isn't it, to think of people like the sound of the 60s. Is that still a sound of the 60s on anywhere?
Is that a Tony Blackburn show? I think so.
Something like that, yeah. But you think that the listenership for that, or the sort of original listenership for that, must be gradually declining, which is just obviously feels quite melancholy. But that will happen to everything. Like you say, the sound of the 90s will be for real old timers eventually, if radio even still exists. But it is just the passing of time, isn't it? It's all completely natural.
Maybe that's it. Maybe that's what's next. We'll be doing sounds of the 90s when it's like 2070 or something like that.
Yeah. I would love to get on radio. Anyway, let's.
Well, that's a come and get me plea if ever I've heard it.
Yeah, I'm just laying my cards on the table.
Before we end, I'd just like to mention some of the comedy that was on radio in the 90s as well. And in the main, I'd like to talk about Lee and Herring, Richard Herring, of course, who we've already mentioned, and Stuart Lee, who, as a double act, really got their sort of break on radio. First of all, with a show called Lionel Nimrod's Inexplicable World, which is a great comedy show that lasted for one series. And then they did a Fist of Fun radio show before that then transferred later onto TV. And I think quite a few comics actually did that. They had shows on the radio first, which then transferred over onto TV. And there's vast internet archives of all this stuff, so you can go back and listen to Lionel Nimrod and Fist of Fun, as I have done over the past couple of years. It's still great, and some of the best radio comedy of the 90s.
What is this strange force named magic? Join me, if you dare, in this, my inexplicable world.
Lionel Nimrod's Inexplicable World
of magic. And please welcome your astronauts on the shuttle to amazement.
I'm Stuart Lee, and you are?
I'm Richard Herring, Stuart.
Hello, and welcome to Lionel Nimrod's Inexplicable World, coming to you live this week from Lancaster University.
We've had a message from Ideas Man of the pod, Adam J. Fisher, about Chris Morris as well, haven't we?
We have, yeah. This was such a coincidence because, as usual, we didn't get organised in time and put out a social media post saying we were going to do this episode, which would have made sense because we could have then asked for your thoughts on 90s radio. But he did send us a message saying, "Hi chaps, were you ever aware of Chris Morris's BBC One music show from 1994? It's a riot and I fully recommend listening. Best in the car." And he sent us a link to a Radio Echoes website, which has an archive of these radio shows. And I didn't know at all that Chris Morris had a radio show on Radio 1 as well. That really surprised me.
Yeah, that's right. Then there were a couple of comedy shows as well, dark comedy shows called Jam and Blue Jam. Or it might have just been Blue Jam, I'm not too sure. But Diamond Joe Barter is the man to ask about this. He's an absolutely huge Chris Morris fan. He'll be able to tell us everything we need to know. So maybe we should refer it to him next time he's on.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of radio comedy for me, I think coming back to my parents listening to Radio 4, Just a Minute was always on. Still going, of course. I'm a big fan of Paul Merton, so I listen to that whenever I can. And I'm Sorry, I Haven't a Clue, which was presented by Humphrey Littleton for absolutely decades. And you'd have people like Barry Cryer on there. And that was always really funny. And also the news quiz with greats such as Jeremy Hardy and the now sadly without us, Linda Smith, who was a fantastic comedian who was often brilliant on the news quiz. So, yeah, Radio 4, I think, for me, for the comedies. And also, I have to just mention The Archers. It's not a 90s thing. I mean, it's been going since, I think, 1951 or something mad like that. In fact, when the theme tune plays, my mum will often remind me that she remembers bouncing up and down in her pram to that theme tune when it was on. So that tells you how long it's been on the X. My mum is, well, I don't want to give
careful
you details.
What you say here. Be very
impolite,
what you say.
But she's been around for a while, so that is testament to how long The Archers has been going. So it's always kind of comforting to know that's still there.
So you gave your final thoughts on radio halfway through the episode.
I did.
So I guess I'd better follow up and give my final thoughts on radio. I'm very fortunate to have had the situation where it was used as a tool for me to sort of drift off to sleep very early on, I guess, all that time ago while sleeping in my parents' bed, because it's something that's stayed with me like my entire life. It's not something that's ever been incidental to me. It's always been something that I've valued and appreciated. And as I've grown older, I've come to appreciate the art, particularly of football commentary. I really enjoy listening to a football commentary on the radio. I always will. I'll always enjoy listening to Sports Report and Final Score on the radio. I'll always enjoy listening to music on the radio. But when it comes to things like GWR, which we've spoken about very fondly here, I know it's our stock in trade to say that things were better in the 90s, but it really was in that case, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Heart radio just isn't the same, is it?
Yeah, it doesn't have that same local identity. It doesn't make you feel rooted in your community in the same way. And I think that is sadly missed. I mean, of course, we could listen to BBC Radio Wiltshire or BBC Radio Bristol. So there are options out there, but I don't think it has that sort of slightly plasticky, low budget, but friendly feel of the GWR and equivalents of its day.
And we would, of course, like to say to BBC Radio Wiltshire and BBC Radio Bristol, if they're listening, we are available. Just have a word with Jeff. We're sure we can sort it out. Okay, so that was radio in the 90s. We really enjoyed talking about our own memories of listening to the radio in the 90s. We're sure you've got lots of memories of doing the same. If you have and you'd like to get in touch, Alex, how can the listeners get in touch with us?
They can find the link tree in our episode description below. You'll find links to our Instagram, our email address, our YouTube. So please do use them to get in touch, because I would love to hear people's memories of listening to radio in the 90s and what it meant to you and what your favourite shows were and all those sort of things. So yeah, definitely do get in touch.
Please do get in touch about that or any other topic we've ever spoken about on the show. We really love to hear from you. Well, as usual, we're not entirely sure what we're going to be covering next time, but we will let you know as soon as we do. Until next time, thank you very much for listening. It's goodbye from me. I'm just off to see if I can get the Archers on my football boot radio.
And it's goodbye for me. I'm just off to find a portable radio and roll the dial up and down the airwaves and listen to that lovely, nostalgic, static sound of a manual analog radio for old time's sake.
Wonderful. Ta-ta for now.